It's time now. Okay, let's go. It's Viny the Wonderful Toronto's mission with your host, Viny the Wonderful.
Hello, and I hope you have had a wonderful week, a wonderful day. And just in the interest that I said I was going to talk more about art cover, I am going to talk about the one that I did for Muspelhell. And that one was, I tried to do some storytelling by having what in my head are fire giants. They're behind the door, because the theme of that zine, Muspelhell, it was a heavy metal dwarven dungeon adventure to steal your soul. And it was about dwarves taking a huge metal door to seal the underworld, hell-like dimension of Norse folklore. And so you have this huge metal door on the front of the composition, which is a very important item in the game as far as the gameplay dynamic goes. And you have flames that go up and create a nice space for the title. And the dwarves in the front, they are aligned in such a way that is symmetrical, which is a powerful tool. Symmetry is a powerful tool in creating covers. And if you look at it, the dwarves are either at the door, pointing at it, or looking at it, with the exception of the one in the middle that is looking at the viewer, breaking the fourth wall and inviting the gamer to be part of the adventure. So if you're looking at that cover, the idea is that you are the eighth dwarf that is about to go help them. Like, you have the characters are breaking the fourth wall and interacting with you, the viewer. So that was the bit of storytelling that I did. So it was all done in watercolor, and a nice Easter egg, I want to say, about that painting that I've never said to anyone before. I didn't write about it on my blog, and not even the people who worked on the zine know. But in the door, the runes that are in the door, the smaller ones, you can't even attempt to read them. I made it intentionally fade-ish. But I actually used an online rune translator, which I'm sure is not correct, is not a thing, but just to delight myself, just to tickle my own brain, I actually inserted a phrase in there, because I was thinking the runes would have a magical spell or something. And it's a metal door, but the tagline of the game is a heavy metal dungeon adventure. So this whole metal thing, I actually went to the song The Metal by the band Tenacious D, and I used a line from the song that says, "We are the vanquished foes of the metal. We try to win, for why we do not know." And it's a very melodic phrase. I really recommend, if you don't know this song, The Metal by Tenacious D, really listen to that song, because it was, for me, an inspiration to create some of the artwork in this game. I really love me some Tenacious D. So yeah, that was an Easter egg that I'm sharing about that cover. But anyway, this today's episode I decided to make about dwarves. Then I guess it's a segue. But I want to give a shout out at least to the artists that worked on that project. Marissa Hogan, Perplexing Ruins, Drew Cochran, Ben Croft, and Flux did the layout. I'm going to talk about everybody who works on the project when I do an episode about Muspelhell specifically. But I'm going to segue into dwarves. I rewatched the Lord of the Rings movies, and I haven't read the Lord of the Rings books, but I've seen the movies when they came out, and it was quite nostalgic to rewatch them, because ever since they've been released, and I've seen them on theaters, I have not rented a DVD or whatever, because the movies are notoriously very long, and I kind of get it. But anyway, the Gimli character, like the dwarf. Why was he so neglected in that movie? Like, I didn't remember him being just like a joke character. Every character in Lord of the Rings has such an immense, epic, slow motion scene, and Gimli only has like joke moments. I think he has, as a reward, 3 golden hairs from an elf, and like that is it. And apparently, like, according to people who read the book, he has so much more depth as a character. Anyway, but he is such a cool like representation of a dwarf, and apparently, like that version, the Tolkien version of it, is what inspired what a lot of people think of dwarves. Right? It was Tolkien, then Gygax type take on the dwarves, and then like fantasy in general. So even like the dwarf from Golden Axe, which I will talk about later, it's all based on that idea. Because if you look at fairy tales and whatnot, dwarves, they're similar to gnomes, right? And gnomes themselves we have the guardian gnome, which is kind of like interchangeable with the fairy tale dwarf. You have the more fantasy fairy type, and we also have the gnomes as the earth elementals, which is kind of a cool concept, that each of the 4 elements have like a spirit. Like the salamander is for fire, the gnomes are for earth, and the salamander is so so weird because a salamander is cold to the touch. People used to say that it's so cold that it could resist fire, and from that became like the fire elemental. But even if you look, as I said, to Golden Axe, like the dwarf is named Gilius Thunderhead, and the Lord of the Ring one is Gimli, from Gimli to Gilius. So, and the axe and the type of Norse helmet with horns, like that whole style of dwarves. You don't see a lot of fantasy work that try to do something different. And why should we? Because if it ain't broke, you shouldn't fix. Like, that is a great trope. As far as people who modernly have been playing RPG, I don't see a lot of people like enjoying dwarves as much. They are an essentially masculine race, to the point where it is said that the female dwarves look like male ones. We did address that in the game, in Muspelhell game, where we did have female dwarves that don't have beards, but we do have female dwarves that do have. So it really depends on like the player interests, right? And I think that ultimately, as far as Fantasy 4 RPG goes, the cool thing about it is that you can make it your own way, provided you have a nice dungeon master, a nice narrator that would accommodate your predilections. And just as like a breaking news development, I found out that Dragon Quest X has like greenish little humanoid dwarves, kind of like how modern artists are doing goblins. I haven't played Dragon Quest X yet, but I am familiar with the third one, and that one I guess had like one dwarf. I don't even think there is like official art for him. But I digress. It's just like an example, right, of dwarves being made different. I can't really think of any mainstream game that makes dwarves kind of different. We do have dwergers that there are like supposed to be a different race of dwarf, like a subtype, but straight up a new concept for dwarves is kind of rare. Again, I could be talking about the folklore of it, but I'm focusing on fantasy, right? And so forgive me if I'm missing a type of a fantasy trope for dwarves, but I do like. It's not even like I'm seeking or looking for a different version, because I very much like that version. And in my homebrew, in my fantasy world, when I narrate RPGs, it's pretty much all like that. But I do like to include dwarves knowing a little bit more magic that they're being credited for knowing generally in fantasy. Like, they're pretty great smiths, but not great sorcerers and magicians. And they should be quite magical in some way. So note that you can visit vinydewonderful.blogspot.com. There's a link in the description. You can always send a message to me about this transmission or any topic, commission related, just to complain about stuff, whatever. Be nice. Complain, but be nice. I will not reply nastiness. That is it. It's heyviny@hotmail.com. HEYVINY@hotmail.com. Thank you so much for listening to another rambling episode of this thing right here, and I see you next time.
We do have a saying amongst us dwarves. We knock a block of rocks and we block a flock of orcs. Another one.